tip I could give is, because I do have this thing about memories, like just because of my background, like letting go of things, I totally understand having a hard time letting go of things, even though I love to organize. So I take a photo of everything that I'm second guessing about getting rid of, even though I've asked my kid, are you okay letting go of these things? And luckily I've raised kids that are like, yeah, no problem. They don't have the big attachment. So that's nice. But I struggle a little bit, especially if it's stuff from when they were little.
Mhm.
But I will just take a picture of all these different things. And if at some point I want to incorporate it into a scrapbook and just write my little memories or my
Mhm.
thoughts about each thing, it's much easier to have fun looking through a photo album or even just scrolling through your phone looking at items than to store everything,
Yeah.
in a bunch of bins, taking space.
Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway, certified high performance coach with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Thank you for being here and thank you for joining us. This month, we are looking at the theme of being a resilient overcomer. And we're going to take a little different angle on this. And I don't think we've had this on the podcast before. We're going to talk to the Declutter Angel, Angela over here, and we're going to apply this to motherhood and give you some tips and tricks and ideas of how to really make this work for you. Angela, thank you for being here. Please tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Angela Agranoff, and I am the Unclutter Angel. And I like to work with adults as a life organizer, but I also work with young kids as a life skills coach, or a life skills teacher. And that's a lot of fun. So adults sometimes are a little more difficult than the kids. The kids are very fun to work with, and we just work on learning how to either clean and organize and just different skills, around the house. So from 5 to 12 years old. But I also write, and I love the topic of getting organized. So that's a little bit about me.
And I think that's become more popular as people have been in their home spaces more. And it definitely was a trend there for a while. And I've got the plastic containers and all the things, and I've done the different things. But what really comes down to it is mindset, isn't it? And I think that's a piece sometimes people forget about. Can you speak about that?
I totally agree with that. And so whether it's adults or it's kids, I feel like I've learned over the years that it's not just about inserts in our drawer or what we're hanging in our closet, but it can be a lot harder than that. Understanding what to keep, what to let go of, and making that decision. I think a lot of times when it comes to decisions in general, a lot of people get stuck. So I see that in all ages. So I think mindset is very important. And the more we practice that, even if it's around the house making decisions, even if it's the younger kids making decisions in their room, I really do feel like that is a great life skill for any age to, be able to work on your mindset, but make the decisions of what's important to you, what you can let go of. And I totally get that it's hard at first, but it does get easier the more we do it. And then once we let go of things and we see our space open up, I feel like our minds can open up and we can function better in our space. So it's a lot more than just the stuff.
Yeah, it's not just hoarders with stuff everywhere. And I have you done some of that work too to like help somebody at the extreme end versus someone on the other end? Or
I have not. So there's this thing within the professional organizer world where we have to be able to understand what, our client is and what we feel we are capable or trained to do. So I know there was one situation where I walked in and she had a lot of stuff and she's like, can you just organize this? And it's like, this is a much bigger project. And so yes, for some people in those situations, I feel like they need more support than just an organizer. So going back to the whole mindset thing.
yeah.
And then once they can kind of have a shift in their thinking, I think that's when they can start to make progress, that it makes more sense to them.
Why do you think people get attached to stuff so much and aren't able to let go? I think sometimes there's like a memory tied to something or a different thing versus hoarding. Sometimes I've heard is like they just collect a lot of things for someday if this might happen or someday if this might happen. So that's kind of a deeper process that needs some psychological help with it versus organizing brain, maybe the flow of the house or the style the kid wants to organize in versus the way you organize. What kind of things do you run into there?
I think it could be a whole range of things. So like you mentioned, it could be your past, whether growing up, your family didn't have much. We've heard a lot of that where people, of an older generation hold on to things because they had that experience of not having enough. And then the next generation, it's kind of passed on to. I think for some people, it is memories, whether they've had certain trauma in their life or experiences or they're just not able to process things in a certain way. It's just they just want to hold on to stuff. And I totally get that. I'm very empathetic with when I'm writing and working with people. I totally get all of these. I think for some people it's control. It's like the one thing that they can control is the stuff around them. So I think that could be a big piece of it too. So I do believe that getting to know someone and understanding their space and kind of where they come from and maybe just getting to know them, that it makes it easier to, connect with them and see what their needs are. And even with the kids, some kids have stayed with me. I've had some kids with me, I think, for 2 or so years, these online classes. And it's really remarkable to see them make progress where they had a lot of stuff in their room. And maybe I say some of the same things their parents have told them, but because, I'm an outsider, it's just so much easier. And it's been really cool to see them be able to make decisions like to either let go of stuff or to rethink how they take care of their room.
And it becomes kind of a part of our identity, right? I think that's part of it. And if you don't know who you are yet, or you're developing, you're kind of deciding along the way. And you may have gotten to a point that like, my life is in disarray, or maybe you had to downsize, or I know I've had to downsize and like forced to declutter, forced to have a change. And that change rattles you a little bit because you have to define what is precious and what is not, what's worth letting go of. And I think when you have a big move or a big change, that kind of forces it. But to be aware of life could flow better. It could be easier if I would address this because it's taking a lot more of my energy than I need it to. I think especially for moms, we can realize that at some point of like, I'm spending so much time with the toys or the making the beds or the dishes, or we have like for me, decluttering, I realized we had too many towels. And because we had so many towels, they were piling up into these huge loads of laundry of towels. Or I wouldn't be told we need towels until the pile was really, really big, right? Because I'm trying to get them to be a little bit responsible with that. So I cut the amount of towels we had and like way down, and it's way more manageable. But I grew up in a house with my parents had 6 kids in 8 years. And so there was a lot of stuff around just because there were a lot of us.
Right.
I remember my first year of college, I made dinner for 4 people. And I made it like I was making it for my 3 teenage brothers. 3 teenage boys eat a lot, right? So I made this like huge spaghetti pot of spaghetti because that's what I did with my 3 brothers. It was way too much food for us 4 or 5 college kids, and it went bad. And it was kind of then when I realized like, okay, what was at home where there was lots and lots and lots of stuff. There were 6 kids going through lots of stages of clothes and shoes, and I don't have to have that this is different now. And so I think there may be, like you said, the past, some of those patterns. It's been interesting to recognize those and just like make simple tweaks. And I've also heard people go to the extreme of my kid has 1 cup, 1 plate, 1 pair of silverware, and they are in charge of it, and this is theirs.
Wow.
And so I've seen some different ways people do it, but I think you have to know yourself. And that's that piece you talked about aligned with yourself. Like for me, my new gauge is, does it make me feel peaceful? If it makes me feel peaceful, then I'm going to keep it, or I know it's right for me. But I don't think it took me a while to figure out what that feeling was for me. So I think the hardest person, I don't know if this is true, but I think this is true in coaching and different things, is if they don't have clarity on who they are and what the end goal is, some of the work that you have to do then is get them to that clarity, either of who they are or what the end result is. And how do you deal with that process? Do you have like an assessment you do before you take a client on, or is it know them? What's your process?
So right now, most of the people I work with are the little people, which I really enjoy, but it's still kind of the same thing. I want to tell moms, this is important. I feel like, so my kids are all in their 20s. I have one kid that is almost done with college. The other two have already graduated. And so I'm just at a different time in my life, but I don't want people to think that there's an arrival type of thing, in my opinion. So here's the nice thing, and I think with organizing, is there's no one way to do something. Because I feel like even as an organizer, when I would go to these conferences and people would have specific ways to organize papers or do things, and it's like my brain doesn't even understand what you're saying. We're all just very different. Yeah. And so I decided as an organizer and with my writing that it's like, this is what I would suggest. But like you said, you could tweak it, you make it your own, you want to make your brain happy, because we don't all do things in the same way. So yes, for me, I want to do the least resistance. It's like an onion, just with the layers. There was a show a number of years ago where they would go in, I think it was called Clean House, and they would go in and they would basically dump everybody's stuff out on the front lawn from this house. And these people were like, you need to decide what you're going to keep, and you have 1 hour to do it. And it's like, what? Talk about trauma. So I think I would just suggest to moms to never feel like, when am I going to get this right? Or am I doing it right? It's just a process, and it's the same for your kids, and you just tweak it, and you can do it in steps, because even at my age, I'm not that old, but with my kids being older, I'm still doing things in layers, because that's what feels right to me. And one big tip I could give is, because I do have this thing about memories, like just because of my background, like letting go of things, I totally understand having a hard time letting go of things, even though I love to organize. So I take a photo of everything that I'm second guessing about getting rid of, even though I've asked my kid, are you okay letting go of these things? And luckily I've raised kids that are like, yeah, no problem. You know, they don't have the big attachment. So that's nice. But I struggle a little bit, especially if it's stuff from when they were little. But I will just take a picture of all these different things. And if at some point I want to make, incorporate it into a scrapbook and just write my little memories or my thoughts about each thing, it's much easier to have fun looking through a photo album or even just scrolling through your phone, looking at items, than to store everything, in a bunch of bins, taking space. So
yeah, and paying for a storage unit to keep them, because you're going to get to it eventually. Yeah. I ended up with everything from my 9-year marriage when I divorced, and I have downsized and downsized and downsized every move. And I finally gotten down to like the boxes that are just memories. But at the time when I was married, I can't believe what I kept. And it was kind of just as cell phones were getting more photo friendly. So this wasn't something I could do yet, but I've started to go through the memories and take photos, because it's like, I can't keep all these papers, and the amount I kept, I'm like, why did I keep everything? And now my child, who's little and at the same age, their little brother, it's a little different, because it's like, I'm a little more picky about what I keep and stuff being so attached to everything. One, because we don't have the room, and two, because I'm starting to realize it's almost more about being present with them than the things and that stuff. And I've been around people who, no offense to them or anything, but very attached to material things and keeping up the Joneses. And I think it can just take away from the joy of life when we get too attached to things. And I love a saying by Mother Teresa, something to the lines of, we come into the world with nothing and we leave the world with nothing. Treasure your relationships, treasure your knowledge, treasure the things that actually get to go with you more. And I think we're moving that way a little bit more as we are more holistic in our approach to life with work and family and the things that we do. Do you see that trend in the work that you're doing?
No.
Okay.
Just to summarize, not really. But I do know, like a number of years ago, there was kind of this trend again in shows, because I love watching, the organizing type of shows, because I like to see what other people come up with. But there was this trend in shows on minimalism. I don't know if you remember that. And paring down and tiny homes and things like that. We don't really hear too much about that now.
Anymore. Yeah.
And I do love the idea of that. Like, to me, that's inspiring to just have the minimum stuff. But I just don't know if people are quite to that point yet where
I tried. I was claiming I was going that way. And then I realized pretty quickly I wasn't. It was my version of that. It wasn't when I researched it and did the true version of minimalism, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I can quite do it to that extent.
Yeah.
Because I remember one of the stories, a guy just took like everything he owned and put it in like a garage or a room and then left it that way and just gradually brought back out what was still needed. Everything. So like silverware, it was all in the garage, and then eventually got to where he felt like he had what he needed, kind of thing. I thought that was an interesting idea, but like you're saying, like to actually do that, it's one thing to see somebody else do it. It's a complete other thing when you have to do it.
Yeah. Or his garage was completely empty because he brought everything back into the house.
Yeah. I don't think that's quite what happened, but yeah.
Yeah, I think just the process of doing a little bit over time, like even for me, I'm still going through my kids' memories. So my daughter just graduated from college. She's now decided she's not going to come back home because she was in a different state. And so I just in the last 2 weeks have emptied out that room that she's had all these years and going through the last like memory things. And so I am going to go back through like the little kid boxes that I've created for them and just do another sort through and just take out more stuff, because I think this is true of firstborns though. I don't know if you can relate to this, but my firstborn, it's like every little fingerprint, every little letter. It's like, I want to save it all, from preschool to college. And then, the next kid and the next kid, it's like maybe just not quite as much stuff. Yeah. So, I would like to go back through and just kind of do another layer and just not be hard on myself. That for me, I have to just do things in layers and maybe it takes a little bit more time, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I feel like it's more doable. I think it's funny. Life kind of just forced me to do it in different stages. And so like downsizing to where I'm at now. It's just like, it's been interesting because what was important isn't as important anymore. Like what I thought was, or to find like the things that brought me comfort. It's different now. Like, so I'm just not as attached to things because it's so much more about the kids and my time with them in this chapter, because I realize it's fleeting. I feel like I've got 2 teenagers. But one thing I had to come to grips with, and I don't know if you've had clients that have discovered why they're attached to certain things, but my mom and I don't have the greatest relationship, but I remember at the beginning of every school year, she would know we needed to get school clothes. And so it would be this like kind of free for all. We were smart. We kind of go thrifting or Ross or somewhere that, so it wasn't like fancy school shopping or anything, but it felt that way because it was the only time where we were kind of allowed to like drop $200 or whatever that we needed for the whole year. And so I tend to have a lot of clothes, a lot of clothes. And so it's taken me to get down to like, I have my sparkly stuff. I have my basics. And now I'm like, trying to understand more capsule kind of ways of doing clothing and mixing and matching, because we've gone from like a big dream home to a 2-bedroom to a townhome to a 3-bedroom back down to a 2-bedroom. And like right now I actually don't have my own closet. I'm sharing a closet with one of my kids. And so it's like just forced me to like rethink about what the purpose is and like quality too. Like you can buy a lot of clothes cheap and use them up, or you can buy intentional pieces that work together and be smarter about how you're using them. And I kind of look at organizing now. We talked about this a little bit before we got on, of like, what is the flow in my house? How do I use stuff when I cook? What do I actually use when I cook? And what is just sitting in the back collecting dust?
Right.
How much of this do I need? I recently just got some clear containers for my fridge. And we were really struggling with like having multiple ketchups and different things in the fridge. Mm-hmm. But now that I've created a system and I have these clear containers that stack, I'm amazed now I can see what's in the bottom drawers. I can see what's behind, but I still have space for stuff, and like just one little tool in the right place, but thinking about how we use it and how we could incorporate it. Mm-hmm. Doing things that make sense, right? Not just it looks pretty, but like it makes sense. And my fridge or the way my kitchen is organized may not be how it would work for you at all.
Right.
But that's how it worked for me. And a few other tricks have been like having a drawer for just his special dishes and having a special place for their snacks where they can reach them.
Yeah.
Lids used to get like missing all the time. And then someone pointed out, have a whole drawer for the lids, but like the flat lids, and not a deep drawer, like just the drawer where you can only fit as many as you have. And like just some simple little things have made things so much easier to find.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so I think, I don't know what your tricks are, but it's been kind of fun to research a little bit, but then also go, okay, this is working. And then kind of being excited that it worked. So,
well, I think you bring up a good point in that if you learn or you hear about an organizing trick and you try it and it does not work for you, it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means that you need to find something that works better for you and just to tweak that a little bit. So it sounds like you have found some great things in your kitchen that work for you, but you know, if other people that are listening are like, I've tried that and that doesn't work for me, that's totally fine. I think it's kind of exciting to think that we can do different things to find what our style is. I do feel like with the clothes, there's something that like definitely helped me. I keep talking about different shows. I do not watch TV all the time, but I like things when it comes to like the organizing, the minimalism. And then this one that this show that I watched, it was on clothing, because you brought up clothing. And I can't remember if it was a National Geographic or what it was, but it talked about the amount of clothes that just the United States buys, just people buy from other countries, and, you know, how we just have a lot of clothes. But then when we donate them, there are companies that can't keep all of the clothes that are donated. And so then they ship them, they send them overseas to, I think, Africa and other places where people have their own businesses, which is really cool. And they resell these clothes. But then they went on to say how there was such an abundance of clothes. So when the ship comes to these different ports, people will go and they will just give money for bundles of clothes, and they will just buy a bundle or 2 bundles, take them and, you know, put them in their shop. But there were so many clothes that they were showing like pictures of beaches just covered in clothes, just like, because it's become trash, and how there's just this abundance of textiles. And that like really was an eye opener for me to think about, yeah, all this stuff goes somewhere.
Right. And that's what I noticed. Cause like when I really went through, like, let's say leggings, I had a lot of leggings for working out, and I wanted this one to match this one and this to match this one. And like, so this idea of like basic colors like black and navy and jeans go with everything, and then incorporating that more feels better to me, because you don't need so much, you just need better quality and fewer things.
Right.
That's also why I like thrifting. Like I laugh when people like need to go buy new, and when I see some of the prices of fashion stuff, sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody, but like I won't be impressed by the fact that you went to Neiman Marcus to go shopping. I'm going to question that because I feel like I can go to the thrift store and find used like fashion brand things. I found great things there, and I'll go to places and I'll get asked where I found stuff, and I'll actually brag about the deal that I got with it, which I don't know. I like to think I'm resourceful, right? So, but my kids actually really like it. One of my daughters is figuring out her own unique style, and I'm really glad that she's doing it in a way that is allowing her to like reuse her clothes, reinvent her clothes, and then kind of just go to the store and figure out something. So recently she's into painting and everything.
Oh, okay.
She recently took a sweatshirt and had her sister draw this beautiful like butterfly kind of pattern on it. And she's more into like Tim Burton kind of darker kind of stuff. She loves like the Wednesday series and stuff like that, but she kind of got her own style. And she took bleach with a dark sweatshirt and did that pattern herself. And she researched how to wash it and some different stuff. And we had a tie-dye kit with all these colors, and she's done her own stuff. So she's used stuff that could have been thrown away or it wasn't exactly how she wanted it. She also took sweatpants and did a bleach pattern on them. And like, now she has this own unique thing that is hers and nobody else's. And we got to reuse something and we got to bring new life to it. And I love that kind of thing, because I think the generation, at least I feel like this is true. So we have the generation coming out of the Great Depression who really like made things last, right? And things were built to last back then. But they have these habits of like still needing to save water and using the water to flush the toilet because they think like just things that happened back then, or they have a candy bar they put in the freezer and they bite it a little bit at a time because it was a treat, like things that we don't quite comprehend.
Right.
They do it. And then the next generation gets into more abundance and more abundance and more abundance. And like, so we got away from the next generation wanted a more comfortable life, right? And then they wanted to give that to their kids. And like, I'm an 80s kid. So, you know, that was really kind of the era of keep up with the Joneses and have the house with 6 kids and all those.
Right.
Things, you know? And so it's just interesting how, depending on what era you came from or where your parents came from in that, where they, like, I know I come from farmers and trappers in Montana kind of thing. And like my grandpa's one of 13 kids that lived in Montana kind of thing. And like, and then he went on to do pretty well with money and have a business and different things. And my dad too, like that's a huge step for 3 generations. But interesting, some of the habits and patterns that have come from that like extreme change in one lifetime or a couple generations. And I think we're about to shift into a different one with AI and our screen time and everything too. Because I think, at least I've noticed this, if there's too much screen time, they're not aware of the environment around them. Like they don't notice that things need to be put away as much because you just like, and so I think that's a piece with the youth. I wonder if you run into that at all and how, and just in general with the youth, like they're in a very different world than I grew up in, than generation before grew up in. So how do you help them with life skills and not just like organizing stuff, but learning how to like organize their life and time management? Because I think that's the thing we're all trying to master at this point with so much access to our basic needs being met. And then all these distractions, people paying for our attention. They want our attention here, there, everywhere. It's everywhere. So how do we stay in alignment with ourselves and the way that we organize ourselves and our day, because that's going to affect everything else and our environment.
I think kind of what you're talking about is it could be routines or, you know, just focus or lack of focus. And I do see that in the classes that I teach, where there's some kids that are totally engaged during our time together because we actually work during our class. We do not sit around. I do not lecture. I give little tips and encouragement, but it's really to get the kids engaged in class, because I think that is important to move and to be hands-on. So I do see some kids, it's a little bit harder for them to focus, or they have like, I can always tell they have that second screen there while they're in class. But then there's some kids that just really get into it. And I do think it's about, you know, having a routine and what is our routine and, you know, how we start our day and how we end our day. And of course, everything in between. But, you know, I guess with computers and just, everything being digital and online, it really just challenged us a little bit more to figure out how we can focus and be present and not too, you know, whether it's on the phone or other things like that. But, I do think that we can also get distracted by all the stuff that's around us, even if whether it's digital or just things. And that is the nice thing about simplifying our space I believe for myself that it clears my brain when I have a simplified space. And just as an example, we had a renovation a couple of years ago, and it was our entire main floor. And so I had to get rid of everything off the main floor. And a lot of it went out in the garage. We were just talking about garages. So everything went out into the garage, and it was like, I'm only going to bring back in the things that I know we want to keep for this, new kitchen and everything. And like what you were saying, hardly anything came back in. I gave away probably the majority of our furniture. And our main floor is very simplified. So I've kind of anchored into now what I'm doing in other parts of the home after that experience of the renovation. So, ladies, if you want to, get more organized, maybe decide to do a renovation on your house. There you go. That'll get you to downsize or simplify.
Yeah.
So if you've ever wanted to get a new kitchen, that's a great way to get organized.
Yeah. Or sure. Moving. I knew I was going from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. So that helped. The move that didn't help, and this is where this became a very, very important subject to me. It was when we went from the townhome to the 3-bedroom. Love my father, but he brought everything. That was not the plan. He didn't understand what was coming and not coming. And so it was all in the truck before I could do anything about it. There was even a garbage that hadn't been taken out that got stuck in the truck. That's how fast stuff got in this truck.
Yeah, just in case you needed it.
So there was only one of me, and I couldn't be everywhere. And then it was too late. So from there, communication, labeling everything. And before you have people come, make it very clear what's not going. I thought I had it clear, but just because it was in the garage was not clear because I had to go through the garage to get to the truck. So it just, what I thought was clear was not clear at all. And then from the 3-bedroom noise going down to the 2-bedroom, it just really became how to get creative too, and how to find furniture that could have multiple purposes. So we don't have a dining table. We have more of a bigger coffee table kind of thing. And if I can find anything that can have 2 purposes or converts in 2 ways, I love transformer table kind of stuff. I don't have that necessarily in this space, but I'm into that kind of stuff because I feel that's also a way to maximize your space, but also a way to organize too, is to maybe think a little outside the box and try something maybe with furniture or maybe with the way you do the toys or the shoes or different things. And we found what works for us in some ways. I have some of those square cubbies, and we have some of the little boxes for some, and we don't for others. And even just little containers, maybe I have this one box I'm looking at. This is pretty white box that's got some silver leaves and stuff on it. And we had the CDs in there because they just happened to line up. But it was a thrift store find kind of thing. But it was a pretty way of storing stuff instead of and then it limited how many we could have too, because I had that box. So I don't know, it can be fun. I like to organize when I have the time. I would say now I kind of have the system in place, and it probably could use a refresh, but I feel it still has to be that gradual thing for me. I might just address, okay, this is not working. Let's try something different here. Or cleanup isn't working. Do we need to downsize the toys? Do we need to change where they are? Do different kind of things? And so that's been fun to explore because I found things like these nets you put on the back of a kid's door for their stuffed animals. So it lets them get them off the floor or maybe off from cluttering the bed, but they can still reach them and grab them. I'd never seen that before, but when I started researching, I'm so there's some really fun stuff out there, and it can be a fun process if you want it to be. And when your kids see you do it, I think that really sets the example and lets them explore. And since my kids are in my house and in a different house, I would say as a single mom, things aren't as orderly as I'd like them to be all the time because it's just, it can't be. But at the other house, apparently she's very orderly. At least that's what I've heard. I even had the laundry come back all folded one time, and their suitcase is really nice. That I thought that was really sweet, but that's how it rolls over here, right now, my girls are old enough that I'm okay, you're gonna be on your own in a few years. You are allowed to figure out your style. You are allowed to figure out your system, but you will be on your own soon. And you need to realize that I'm not gonna be around to do any of this for you. So don't get frustrated when I'm not helping as much. I'm doing you a favor here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think the younger that kids start, it definitely, you're just kind of planting those seeds. And again, everybody's brain's different. So, as you know, every kid is different. Like what works for one does not work for the other. So just as parents, having that grace for each of our kids, knowing that they've just got to find their way of doing things, especially if you're talking about like ADHD and different things like that come into play too. We've had that in my house. So I've really learned a lot about, the flexibility and just being able to, and what's funny is my child now is like probably the cleanest of the three, which it was the most difficult. But I'm like, all right, we just kept working on it. And so, yeah, just being patient. And again, I can see that in my classes, some of the kids that have come in, and it's like, you can always tell the kids like their parents made them come to this class. Because they're just, I always ask the same question. It's like, do you like cleaning or organizing your room? Because it's just fun to ask them. Most of them give me a face and I'm like, I'm guessing you don't. And just kind of recognizing that and starting at that point is kind of a relief. And I tell them they're in the right place. Yeah. And so it takes a while sometimes for them to open up, but your kids may be the same where you have that resistance, but just those little seeds and trying to make it fun.
Yeah.
Simple and light. And, you'll see progress over time.
And I think being willing to do it with them some too, that makes it more of a relationship too with you of doing it just at least a few times as they figure out their style and different things. Because I think it can get to a point where it's overwhelming. And when it's a huge pile of laundry that got spilt over and they were looking for one thing and now it's everywhere, I think sometimes visually some kids kind of, as they're different, will freak out and be like, it's just too much now. And so if it's made bite size sometimes, or just 5 minutes or a timer or different things. And I could be better at like, we love music. So if we can incorporate music into anything, especially with my 5-year-old, he's found all these like countdown videos on YouTube that are time frames and they're fun songs. And they're like, they're encouraging along the way, like hurry up. And like, I don't know, it's just, they're cute. Like, so there's a lot of resources out there. Don't think you have to take it all on yourself as a mom. Your favorite song?
Yeah.
What's your favorite song?
Can I tell you my favorite song?
All right. What's your favorite song?
It's called What Makes You Beautiful by One Direction.
What makes you, say that again, what makes you
beautiful by One Direction.
Oh, I like that song. Yeah, great song.
Is that what decluttering does? It makes things beautiful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, well, one. I'm almost done. I'm going to go. Okay, almost done. I promise.
How many minutes, though?
Yeah, I said 5, and then we kept going. So, yeah, we'll be done soon. I'm surprised you don't have a timer on, actually. Well, this has been such a pleasure. Like, I think a lot of people want to simplify their lives and make it flow better and make the most of our time. Like, we want that freedom to really enjoy the time that we have, especially with our family. So thank you for sharing these ideas and these trips. And I love that there's like a kids class for this. Maybe I'll sneak a couple of mine over. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe we'll see you again soon. I really appreciate you having me. I think this is it's a great topic when you talk about having resilience and how it really can even just be about having a cleaner, more organized space, and how that can make our brains happy and just make our day flow a little bit better.
So if I wanted to find you or somebody else wanted to find you, where do we find you at?
So you can find me at theunclutterangel.com. And there you can find lots of articles that I've written to help you with different projects or different situations if you're looking for a little extra help. And you can also find a button on there on my homepage about how you can connect with me if you would like your kids to join a class.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners. Please comment below. Let us know what you liked about this subject. And if you want to know more, go find Angela. She's right here. So I believe in you. Believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you next time on the Resilient Mother Podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe so we can share this message. We are a worldwide podcast with guests all around the world, and we want to continue to grow this community. You can find us on socials. You could also be a guest. Look for that link below if you'd be interested in being a guest on the podcast. If you know a sponsor or would like to be a sponsor, please reach out to me or Catherine as well.
Sure. We want you all on this journey. We want to hear your stories. We want to share your stories. We want to gain strength from each other because together we're stronger. And to never forget the blessing of being a mother and what we're creating. We're creating the future every single day of our lives. So get on this train with us and let's do this thing, moms.
I believe in you. Believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you around. Take care.